Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. While usually we're doing more of a recap and either predictions or reactions for a PLE, today we're doing something a little different. It's a new series. We've been kind of brainstorming and we've titled it If We're Being Honest. So, this is episode one of If We're Being Honest. And before going forward, I just kind of wanted to explain exactly what this series will mean. Essentially, we're picking a topic or several that could be relevant to WWE at the moment, could be random, but for this particular episode, it is very much relevant in that given the season, it will be WrestleMania themed. The main difference will kind of be obviously the we're not just recapping matches, but also that we're a little more informal. The other um, videos are very formal in that we, wait to talk back and forth, and this is going to be very. Neither of us are muted. If we have something to say and we have to cut the other person off or put in our 2 cents, then we'll do just that. No editing for these videos, just simply, saying it how we think it is. So these videos should feel a little more real. Obviously, we're not together in person, which would be the most ideal to have the organic feel. But these will be just as close as we can get. So with that, shall we get started, KP?
I think we will. Yeah, let's go for it.
All right. So, just FYI, these topics are from my head this week, but next time or next week, you're on the clock, KP.
Sounds good to me.
All right. So, first topic I had was Mania, moving to 2 nights. Essentially, we've had 5 years. This will be year 6. One of the few good things that came from COVID-19. My question for you is, what do you think of the 2 nights? Pros and cons, and do you ever miss the one night of Mania?
I think just like generally speaking, I do prefer having 2 nights over one. I think like the pros mainly for having the both nights is that obviously you get split between both nights and that you don't have to just sort of have one really long event. Which obviously for us over here in the UK, that's a long old haul. Like it's late anyway, but when you've got like I think the most recent one, the latest one, which was just the one night where Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair main evented, that went into like 5:30 in the morning UK time, which is obviously very, very late. So to have 2 nights that are split across the card, and they're going to be ending at like what 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a really big difference for us. So that's a big positive, regardless. Having 2 nights as well just means more matches, right? So obviously you've got more time to play with for a start, which means you've got more matches potentially being on the card, more people being involved, more talent being exposed. So yeah, I just think there are more opportunities and there's just way more talent available to be competing on the stage, which is just what you want at the end of the day. You want to see as many people as possible to appease as many fans as possible. So yeah, I think that in that sense as well, that's a huge bonus as well. The cons really for 2 nights, I mean, I guess you could say potentially that the cost for people attending that would be probably the biggest con because you'd have to purchase tickets for both nights. Um,
Yep.
and if you've got say like work in the morning or something on the
Mhm.
Monday morning, because obviously it goes Saturday night, Sunday night. So I guess you could say maybe they're like the main cons, but you can plan ahead for the latter. You can book the time off if possible. Obviously, depending on certain jobs and whatnot, you might not be able to, but for the most part, you should be fine doing that, given enough notice. So I think they're like the main cons that I would have. But overall, I think it's been a really good decision going to 2 nights. But yeah, I don't know. Do you agree with that? Do you?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I agree. Um, I do think it cuts a bit away from the prestige of the event, the one night of all the matches. Granted, very long. I specifically remember the night before or the Mania before they split it up. It was like like I felt like it was still like a afternoon. It was just barely a afternoon, and then by the time it was done, it was almost midnight. And I'm pretty sure that's the exact mania you're talking about. Um, but regardless, it feels like it does cut away from it because now you're basically taking up 2 nights as opposed to one. Um, I agree that the biggest pro is the more people have the opportunity to get time or get a spot. Um, but the biggest con being, and this is obviously very relevant to me this year, is if you're going to the event, which I am this year, um, it's a bit, and not having to want to buy a ticket to both of them, it's an issue because I don't know who's performing what night. Whereas in the past, you could buy one ticket and you would see all the matches. Um, and if I was going to both, that wouldn't be an issue. But I don't want that. And obviously, a big pro for WWE is they're getting essentially double profit because they are able to have everyone purchase 2 tickets. Granted, they have combos and all that, but yeah, it definitely feels like you are having to pay a lot more to see both events. But granted, you are getting more matches. So, yeah, overall, I like the 2 nights, but I do miss the one night. It felt like it was more special that way, um, for sure. And just going on the record, I think Mania should be the only event that is 2 nights. Um,
I was about to weigh in on that one because you mentioned obviously the there's the prestige of being one night, and you make a lot of sense with that because
mhm.
when you look at the likes of SummerSlam getting 2 nights, going forward, I think I just think that they really are taking the special feeling away from these big events because obviously you've got WrestleMania with
Mhm.
2 nights, so you've got SummerSlam that's going to be getting 2 nights. I think there's already been rumors of the Royal Rumble getting 2 nights. So like I think
Mhm.
at this point we're probably just going to have the main four PLEs a year having two
Yeah.
nights, and then
Yeah.
everything else is going to be the one night, and then it's just going to feel like I don't know, like when's that next step then that they take to go even further and even bigger? And I
Yeah.
just yeah, it's a very ever expanding world, and the
Yeah.
shows are definitely sort of like going down that same path, and the prestige is maybe taking a bit of a hit as well. So I would agree with that.
Yeah. And it definitely does feel like the very slippery slope that we are on is that everything in WWE is always, well, this is the biggest, and it's been that way obviously for a very long time. But it feels like they've definitely ramped that up under Triple H's regime. And to me, the only other PLE that deserves 2 nights would be the Royal Rumble because obviously you have an hour-long match in there. So that one is the one that doesn't bother me, but like SummerSlam being 2 nights, it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me.
I agree.
But yeah, okay. So the next topic I had kind of merges together this one and the next one, but I see this thrown around, and I think this kind of plays into my thoughts of not being as prestigious. Which night is the main event for you? The actual main event. Technically, there are two now, but which one in your head is the actual main event?
Oh, that'd be night two. So you have your
Yeah,
your ending image of
yeah,
WrestleMania in total in the grand scheme of things, and that is the last
yeah.
image you see on the Sunday night because you don't see anything else after that. It's done. So
Right.
yeah, that match that ends it, that is the main event of WrestleMania. But yeah, they do technically have the 2 nights. They both have a main event each, but I think the main event, and there's a big emphasis with that, is
Mhm.
that second one.
I completely agree, and I almost don't want them to call the first night a main event because it feels like that's kind of contradictory. Like you can't have two main events, and I know we've gone back and forth on this with just other because they've done this on regular PLEs. They say, hey, we're having two main events. That's not that. Then by definition, it is not a main event. It is not the last thing or the main event.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
You split them into the days, don't you? Like it's the
yeah,
night one main event. It's
right,
the night two main event. That's their logic, isn't it? Really, which I don't really have
yeah,
such a problem with because when you split them apart, that is what it works like. You do have the
right,
main event of that one night and then the main event of the second night. But then if you take it out like as a big whole, that second one is the main event of the weekend, you know?
Yeah. Even if you are main eventing the second night, though, it feels like it does cut away. So like I main evented WrestleMania, you're thinking you're the last thing on the show, and when you look back in 20 years or something, you have obviously double the main eventers, but it just seems like, especially if on the Saturday, to me, and I agree with you, that it feels like it isn't quite as prestigious. Like you're not the real main event.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
But on that topic, and speaking of main events, this year, neither Royal Rumble winner, Charlotte or Jey Uso, um, are going to be in the main event. And they had two opportunities to do so, and they are not making either of them. Do you agree that that is the correct course of action? And do you think, I'm sure you do you think that they should no longer say, um, when they win the Royal Rumble, that they are not main eventing um, Mania? They should simply just cut it and say the winner of the Royal Rumble gets a title match at Mania, and we can cut out all this nonsense.
So, firstly, do I agree with the current landscape this year of the main events not having the
Yeah.
Royal Rumble winners in? I would agree with that, and not just because of my disdain for Jey Uso and like whether I think he's worthy of winning that match. I think personally, when you weigh up Charlotte against Tiffany as well as Jey Uso against Gunter, don't get
Hmm.
me wrong, they have some appeal to them. I think,
Hmm.
in terms of like the characters together and like their stories going into the matches, they do have some sort of appeal. But when you look at the matches that at this point are going to be main eventing each night, you look at Seth Rollins, CM Punk, Roman Reigns, that's just pure star power across the entirety of the field there. Three
Yeah.
massive
Yeah.
names, three people that I think we've mentioned in our podcasts. The crowd are all cheering. They're chanting
Yeah.
for all of them.
Yeah.
Like they're singing their songs, they're chanting their names, they're putting the ones up. Like it's kind of a crazy situation where there's no one that's hated in that match. I think that has to be a
Yeah.
main event because of what it means to CM Punk, especially because obviously
Hmm.
it's his it's his basically his lifelong thing. Like he hasn't main evented WrestleMania, so that's huge for him. So obviously he's got that bit there. And then you've got obviously the hatred and the animosity between Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, CM Punk and Seth Rollins, and then maybe a little bit between Punk and Roman, which is now starting to form. It's a
Yep.
triangle of just, it feels massive. It feels huge. And then obviously on the other side, night two, you've got Cody Rhodes and John Cena. A John Cena heel turn is something that we've never seen before. So that in
Right.
itself is lightning in a bottle. You have to literally just use that when you can, because
Yep.
otherwise it'll be gone. So Cody Rhodes obviously had a great year as the WWE champion. So that is probably the biggest match of the weekend. Like for me personally, like you don't get another opportunity. This is John Cena's last WrestleMania. It's for the WWE
Hmm.
Championship. He could win number 17. If he
Yep.
does, and if that isn't the main event, then that's a poor decision. So yeah, no disrespect to Charlotte and Tiffany as well as Jay and Gunter, but I just think the pure star power of those two matches are just a lot larger. That's just me, just putting out there sort of thing.
Yeah, and mentioned earlier, it's like the two nights obviously help more talent get involved, but also the two night implies that there are a lot more people on the card, which in turn means you are going to have to compete a lot harder to get to the main event. And so my only issue is WWE saying the winner of Royal Rumble gets the main event WrestleMania, and obviously that's not the case. We've had issues. We've had this scenario happen before, but this year with both of them not main eventing. Granted, we don't have a huge sample size for the women, but yeah, it feels like they just need to cut off that trope and just say the winner gets a title shot. Um, but to me, it sounds like you're saying that John Cena, and I think obviously a big part of John Cena um, main eventing, also being a heel, but also it being his farewell tour, like very much like this is his last hurrah. So if this wasn't main event worthy, that would be a big mistake. But I think Triple H kind of puts it best that main event is not it's earned, it's not handed out. So I too think that they've made the right call and who gets to main event this year.
Yeah, I think that they've done the right decision based on the card at the moment, based on the match they've chosen, based on how they booked it. These two are the biggest matches. And to answer your question that you asked a minute ago about whether they should still keep the whole winner of the Royal Rumble is main eventing WrestleMania, vibe. I it's awkward because when you look when you look back on all of the Royal Rumble winners in the past, and I'd say probably a good 80% of them probably have main evented WrestleMania at some point. Well, like in that or after winning that Rumble, I
Hmm.
I think it's a little bit of a slippery slope. Obviously, because you want to book the biggest matches in those main events. So when the Royal Rumble winner doesn't bring that huge feeling going forward into WrestleMania, is that a problem creative wise? Is that a problem with the superstars involved? Is it like,
Yeah.
is it just it's not really just clicking with the fans? Like there are a few different variables that go in there, but
Yeah.
I think when you look at whether they should be calling it the main event after you win the Royal Rumble, I get it, I understand because that's the tradition, but
Yeah.
I think, yeah, maybe it's just safer just to say you get to challenge a champion of your choosing at WrestleMania, and then if that becomes the
Yeah.
main event, it becomes the main event. Awesome, that's great. But yeah, to say you're main eventing and then to have someone who's literally called main event Jey Uso, not main
Yeah.
event, I think it's almost laughable.
The irony is certainly there.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and back when the stipulation first started, which I think was around WrestleMania 11 ish, don't quote me on that, but it was very much this is the biggest this is your way to make it to Mania. You win this match, you're main eventing, and you had to go through 29 other people to do so. So it was worthy of the prize. But now that we've added like elimination chamber as well, you essentially have both champions on both men's and women's side booked after those two matches, and so you could argue maybe elimination chamber is a little easier to win than the Rumble. So um, I think that's just another reason why we should stop saying they get the main event after winning the Royal Rumble. But does it take a bit away from the Royal Rumble in terms of prestige because it doesn't guarantee a main event spot? I feel like that is the case.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
Okay, so with main event on the mind, um, I think we sometimes forget the mid card scene and forget main eventing. But what about being on Mania? As of today, which is April 10th, neither of the women's mid card titles, and I'm talking about Chelsea Green is the U.S. Champion holder, and I'm talking about Lyra Valkyria, the women's Intercontinental title holder. Neither of them have a spot on Mania. So, AP, is this an issue of too many titles in WWE, or have they made a huge mistake in not including either of these women um, in terms of how they've allocated their time in this, which is, mind you, which we both talk about this quite a bit, has been a really long build. Where's the mishap here?
This is an awkward one because I think you could definitely say that there are a lot of titles in WWE. They've added a couple more, and I have no issues with that, no quarrels, because at the end of the day, more titles means more opportunities for more talent. So I'm never going to be one to say that that's a bad thing. That's what I want to see. I want to see more competitiveness over the entire roster, whether it's the main event scene, where it's the mid card scene, the tag team title scene, whatever. Like it's all good at the end of the day. That's what you want. But I think when you look at obviously, as things stand right now, like you said, they don't. Chelsea Green and Lyra Valkyria both don't have a women's mid card championship contender at WrestleMania to challenge their title. So I think looking at things right now, it's a it's a little bit of a weird one because you've obviously got the situation with Bailey and teaming with Lyra to go onto the tag team championship gauntlet number one contenders match. So they're involved in that. But then, like Chelsea Green, she's had this thing with Zelina Vega, and Zelina Vega's come out second best each time so far. So it almost seems like they're just sort of, I don't know, just like squatting her to the side for the time being, and just letting Chelsea gain some momentum and I don't know whether they're going to put some impromptu matchup. Obviously, we've got 2 SmackDowns to go as of recording, so things can still change. But I think right now, I don't see Zelina as a viable challenger, and she hasn't got the momentum behind her. She's just been second best, and that for me is a bit of a strange situation. But there's no one else that's available to put it to go into that. That logically would make sense to challenge Chelsea. So when you've got those 2 titles that are maybe just pushed to the side, and they've only been introduced in the last few months, I mean, it doesn't give the best reputation to them. I think
Yeah.
WrestleMania is a it's not Night of Champions, I know that, but it's a night where
Right.
I think everyone shows up for the main show of the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
So you have your champions defending, you have your biggest challengers pushing to win those titles off of those champions, and if they're not involved or like they're doing something else, I feel like a little bit of the prestige is lost for that championship. Because if it's not on the line on the biggest stage of them all, then that's literally what all these wrestlers want to do. So yeah, I don't really get it. I feel like maybe the creativeness perhaps is a little bit lacking with across all of the championships, especially Lyra. I just find that so strange that she's in this tag team situation when she's literally the champion. So yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one, but I really want to see more of those on the shows.
Yeah, it's you make a good point. It's not Night of Champions, but essentially it should be. In that you should have all your titles on the line, and also you should be able to build up other feuds. Um, I do think it is a huge fumble at this point. Granted, we still have 3 main roster shows to make that happen, but at what point does it become forced and just put on there because it needs to be put on there?
Yeah,
Um, we've had a history of not every title every year at Mania is defended, but especially with this being the first year, and being brand new title holders, it feels like this should probably be the year that they should definitely be on there. Um, yeah, it just feels like a huge slap to the face. Hey, you won these new titles, but you're not at Mania. Um, yeah, it just doesn't set right with me, and especially Chelsea Green, who has been killing it. By the way, and Lyra, who just had her best match of her reign so far, with Bailey. And yeah, I mentioned her tagging with her. That's a strange bit in itself. But yeah, both of these should be on there. At this point, beggars can't be choosers. If they have to throw something together over the next 3 shows, so be or yeah, 3 shows, so be it. At least they're on there. But with how long of this bill has been, with the extra few weeks, there's no excuse. I'm sorry, there's just not.
yeah. There's not, and I think no offense to El Grande Americano and Rey Mysterio,
Yeah.
but I don't think that should be chosen over one of those title matches. That's just me putting it out there.
No, that's 100% accurate, and that crossed my mind as I was saying that. Just looking at the card and that being there, but they've been wasting their time doing the same challengers over and over, for the mid card title. So it's like, if the roster is an issue, like how many times has Michen challenged for the US title? um that's a lot, and no offense to Michen, but I just don't think she's that person, at least at this time. So if the roster is an issue and they feel like they don't have enough people, well, hey, NXT's got some talent, and a lot of right for the picking. Like, what the hell is Roxanne still doing on NXT? But that's a conversation for another episode, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say so.
Uh, but yeah, okay. Well, I think this went well, and we did go a little over our set time limit, but I also had a lot of topics, and it's Mania season, so why the hell not? Um, but yeah, this has been the very first episode of If We're Being Honest. I feel like this is something that we could probably do. It probably won't be a weekly basis, but if we have hot topics in WWE that are bugging us outside of our recaps, this is probably where we will put those, and we can kind of dish off the just off the tip of our head. So KP, any other thoughts on this on the topics we've talked about so far?
On the topic we talked about today, probably not. I think I covered everything that I really need to. But I think when it comes to like the future of how this particular series is going to be looking, I'm quite excited for it because this is basically just us just bouncing off of each other and just just sort of like rallying together and not really going off of like a semi-scripted script. So like a prompter sort of thing. So yeah, we're just gonna basically just be talking, just honestly, off the top of our heads, and just saying what comes to mind in the moment. So basically, just uncut and pure the push, I suppose.
Yep, yep. And I hopefully you enjoyed this as much as I did. It felt like this will be a nice little venting spot, so to speak. Maybe I don't think it'll always be negative, but I think it definitely could be. Could definitely have themes of that if something is bothering us, like this mid card title picture with the women's side. But yeah, with that, this has been another episode of The Push, and this has been episode 1 of If We're Being Honest. And we are coming back tomorrow with another episode that will have a little bit of a different feel to it, and it will also be WrestleMania themed. So keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, this has been The Push with Nick and KP, and we'll see you next time.